the Battle of Gaza. Nobody's going to go to Gaza as a pilgrim in the near future.
People like me, Sikhs living across the Western world, want to do a pilgrimage, to use that word, and then travel to spots in Gallipoli. What's the featured place we should be starting our journey with?
Indeed. That's a very good idea. And I would hope to see the same impulse to visit the battlefields among the Sikh diaspora, the Indian diaspora, as we see in Australia. Australia and Britain and New Zealand especially have always been, no, they haven't always, for the last 40 years have gone on pilgrimages. So couples, families will join tours and go to places like Gallipoli and like the Western Front. And there's a whole series for Australia of places to go to. They don't go randomly. They go to Pozières, they go to Ypres, they go to Fromelles, they go to Villers-Bretonneux. They don't go to the places where Indians served. They don't go to the places where the British fought. They have a very narrow view, if you like. They're a very Australian nationalist approach. But as a result of those tours and that impulse, that commitment, it means that there are thousands and thousands of people in Australia who, when you say the word Pozières, which was what the first big battle that Australians were involved in on the Western Front, those people understand what you're talking about. So it's increasing the level of awareness, of familiarity, of historical literacy, if you like. Now, it would be wonderful if the Sikh diaspora, if the Indian community in Australia could also be following those trails. Now, it's more complicated for India for several reasons. One is that Indians didn't just go to, Australians basically went to three places. They went to Gallipoli, they fought in the Middle East, and they fought on the Western Front. So you can go to virtually all of the main places with a simple flight to France. For Indians, of course, the Indian Army was deployed all over the Great War. So there were Indians in Mesopotamia, now Iraq. That's a problem for tourism. There were Indians deployed in the Middle East, Palestine, the Battle of Gaza. Nobody's going to go to Gaza as a pilgrim in the near future. In fact, the war cemetery there has been destroyed by the Israelis.
Has it?
Seriously damaged. Bodies have been disintegrated. The graves have been destroyed. So nobody's going to go to Gaza. Gallipoli, is a real possibility. In fact, if a group of Sikh Australians wanted to go to Gallipoli, I could easily suggest a 5-day itinerary which would take them to the main places where Sikhs served on Gallipoli. Likewise, for the Western Front, the Indian Corps on the Western Front was there for, I suppose, about a year, 18 months. There's been a very good book written about the Indian Corps on the Western Front by a historian in Britain called George Morton Jack. So using that book, you could follow the very well-developed tourist trails in France and Belgium, and you would go to Indian cemeteries and memorials. Because although there are anomalies and ambiguities about the way in which Indian dead were recorded and commemorated, the Commonwealth, what was then the Imperial War Graves Commission, went to a great deal of trouble to create cemeteries and memorials in order to commemorate Indian sacrifice on the Western Front. And those cemeteries and memorials form the sort of pivots of a tour. It would be so easy. And of course, it's very close to Britain. And the large Sikh diaspora in Britain and the large Indian community, nobody has exploited that as a source of understanding in India's military history. But to me, it's an obvious way to get people interested in, to follow their if not their family history, their community history.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Thanks a lot.
It's a great pleasure, Dev.